My name is Olivia, and in my family, there's always been one label stuck to me, the responsible one. It sounds flattering, right? But if you've ever been the responsible one, you know it usually means the one everyone dumps things on. The one who remembers birthdays, pays for groceries when mom forgets her wallet, drives dad to his appointments, and somehow juggles school, work, and bills without causing a fuss. That's me. Olivia. The one who doesn't cause a fuss. But what no one tells you is that being the responsible one comes at a cost. And sometimes, that cost nearly destroys you. I didn't wake up one day with this title, it was built brick by brick throughout my childhood. When we were kids, my older brother Mark was the charming one. He could sweet-talk anyone, from teachers to relatives, into excusing his late homework or lending him cash. People used to pat him on the back and say, "That boy is going places." My younger sister Sandra was the baby, the dramatic one. If she didn't want to do chores, she'd cough a little, say she wasn't feeling well, and mom would let her lie down. If she cried in the store, she'd leave with candy in her hand. Everyone said, "Poor Sandra, she's so sensitive." And then there was me. If something went missing, they asked me. If the dishes weren't washed, I was told to do them. If there was a bill sitting on the table, mom would sigh and say, "Olivia, honey, can you handle this?" So I learned to handle things. Groceries. House chores. School fees. And somewhere along the way, helpful turned into expected. As we got older, the pattern didn't change. When mom's car broke down, guess who emptied her savings for the repairs? Me. When Sandra forgot her half of the rent in college, who quietly covered so the landlord wouldn't evict them both? Me. When Mark maxed out his credit card on a business idea that went nowhere, who chipped in for groceries so we wouldn't starve? Me. Every time, I told myself it was just temporary. Every time, they said thank you, sometimes. And every time, I thought, at least I'm helping my family. But help has a way of turning into a habit. And habits, once they harden, are hard to break. It was when mom got sick that everything really spiraled. She'd been slowing down for months. Complaining about being tired, needing more naps, her knees aching. At first, I thought it was just age catching up, she was in her late 60s after all. But then she collapsed one evening while making dinner. We rushed her to the hospital, and the doctors admitted her for tests. I remember sitting in that sterile waiting room, my stomach twisted into knots. The smell of disinfectant burned my nose, and the ticking clock on the wall grew louder with every passing second. Mark scrolled on his phone. Sandra dabbed her eyes with a tissue dramatically. And me? I kept thinking about the bills that were about to come. When the doctor finally walked in and said, "She needs to stay for observation," I nodded immediately. Do whatever she needs. Because that's what the responsible one does. The first hospital bill wasn't small, but it wasn't catastrophic either. I went up to the billing desk, pulled out my debit card, and paid. I told myself, of course. This is mom. I'll handle it. Sandra hugged me. You're amazing, Liv. I don't know what we'd do without you. Mark gave me a thumbs up. We'll pay you back, sis. I wanted to believe them. I really did. For the first few weeks, I kept paying. Each bill came in, I signed the forms, handed over my card, and reminded myself, this is temporary. Mom just needs time to recover. But then, something shifted. One afternoon, after Mom had been discharged, Sandra sat beside me on the couch, her voice syrupy sweet. Liv, you've been under so much stress with the bills. You shouldn't have to carry it all alone. I almost dropped my tea. Was she actually volunteering to help? Mark chimed in from across the room, nodding. Yeah, we were talking about it. We'll handle the paperwork from now on. We'll talk to the hospital, get the bills, and then just pass the amounts to you. That way, you don't have to drive back and forth or stress over the details. I blinked at them, my chest warm. For a second, I thought maybe this was it. Finally, they were stepping up. You'd really do that? I asked cautiously. Sandra grabbed my hand. Of course. You've always been the responsible one. Let us take care of this part. You just focus on Mom. Mom, lying on the recliner with a blanket over her lap, gave me a weak smile. They're right, honey. You do so much already. Let them help. My throat tightened. Maybe I was wrong about them. Maybe this time, they meant it. Okay, I whispered. If you're sure. At first, it felt like a blessing. Sandra would text me, bill came today. $1,200. Just send your half when you can. Mark would email, another test for Mom. $600. Thanks, sis. And I'd send the money. Each time, they thanked me. Each time, Mom sighed dramatically, saying, I don't know what I'd do without you kids. I told myself it was fine. This was family. This was love. But slowly, something started to feel off. I noticed the bills seemed higher than before. Not drastically, just a couple hundred more here, a few hundred there. And the timing was odd too. Sometimes they'd say the bill was due immediately, and I'd scramble to transfer money. Other times, they'd wait weeks, then suddenly demand thousands at once. One night, after sending over another $1,500, I sat at my desk staring at my bank app. My savings were shrinking fast. I whispered to myself, how can Mom's care cost this much? But then I shook my head. Don't be paranoid, Olivia. Healthcare is expensive. Stop doubting your family. I wanted so badly to believe that. The moment that cracked my trust came a week later. I had gone over to drop off groceries, milk, bread, soup, because Mom said she was too tired to shop. As I carried the bags inside, I heard voices in the kitchen. I froze, my hands tightening around the handles. Sandra's laugh drifted out. Mark, can you believe it? She actually sent the full amount again. Mark chuckled. Easy money. We just split the leftovers, and she never asks questions. My heart slammed against my ribs. My ears rang. Leftovers? Split the leftovers? I stepped back quietly, my breath shaky. They didn't see me. I turned and walked out the door, leaving the groceries on the porch. In my car, gripping the steering wheel, I felt my world tilt. They weren't just letting me carry the load. They were skimming money. And suddenly, for the first time, a dark thought crossed my mind, even Mom might know. What would you do if you overheard your siblings laughing about splitting leftovers from money you sent for hospital bills? Would you confront them immediately, or wait to get proof? Tell me in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more sweet revenge stories. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling fan, my mind replaying Sandra's laugh and Mark's words over and over. Easy money. We just split the leftovers. Leftovers. They were talking about my money. Money I thought was going to Mom's care. Money I worked long hours for, budgeting every cent, while they split the leftovers like it was a party fund. I wanted to scream. I wanted to drive to their house and slam the bills on the table and demand answers. But instead, I lay frozen in bed, my heart pounding, because one question was eating me alive. Did Mom know? The next morning, Sandra texted me like nothing had happened. "Hey Liv, another hospital bill just came in. $1,450 this time. Can you send it today?" I stared at the screen, my throat dry. Part of me wanted to type back, "I heard you last night. I know you're lying." But the smarter part of me whispered, "Not yet. If you explode now, they'll cover their tracks. You need to be sure. You need proof." So I swallowed my anger and typed back, "Okay. Sending now." When I hit transfer, my stomach twisted. Every fiber of my being wanted to fight, but instead I played the role they expected, the responsible one, the payer. That afternoon, I went to visit Mom. She was lying in her recliner, a blanket draped across her lap, a mug of tea steaming on the side table. She looked frail, tired, her hand pressed to her forehead like the weight of the world sat there. "Oh, Liv," she sighed dramatically as I set down a bag of groceries. "The doctor says I might need more tests. Something about my heart this time." I froze, the grocery bag halfway to the counter. "More tests?" I asked carefully. She nodded, giving me a weak smile. "You know, these things are expensive. But I told Sandra and Mark not to bother you about it yet. You already do so much." Her voice cracked just enough to make my chest tighten. "Mom," I whispered, "you know I'll take care of it if you need it." She reached out and patted my hand. "I know you will, sweetheart. You're the only one I can count on." The words should have warmed me. Instead, they felt like a knife twisting in my gut. Because now I wasn't just wondering if my siblings were lying. Now I was wondering if my own mother was acting. Over the next week, the requests kept coming. Mark called one evening, his voice full of fake sympathy. "Sis, Mom had another checkup today. The doctor says she might need a special scan. It's pricey. About $900. Can you cover it? I'll send you the bill." Sandra followed up with a text the next morning, "Make sure to send it today, Liv. Mom really needs this. We don't want her to suffer, right?" And then, right on cue, Mom called me that afternoon. "Olivia," she groaned, "my chest feels tight again. I don't know what I'd do without these tests. You're an angel for helping." It was like watching a play, each of them taking turns, reading their lines. And me? I was the audience, paying for the tickets. When Sandra finally handed me the bill, I looked at it carefully. It was a plain sheet of paper, printed with the hospital's logo at the top. But something felt wrong. The font looked off, the itemized list was vague: tests, care fees, miscellaneous. "Did they not give more details?" I asked casually. Sandra's smile was quick, nervous. "Oh, you know hospitals. They make it confusing on purpose. But don't worry, I double-checked." She slid the paper back toward me. "Just send the money." Her eyes darted away before meeting mine again, too quickly. I nodded slowly, tucking the paper into my folder. "Sure. I'll handle it." Inside, my stomach churned. That weekend, I logged onto social media. And there was Sandra, posting photos of herself at a spa, her nails freshly done, champagne glass in hand. Mark wasn't any better. His new profile picture showed him leaning against a shiny car I knew he couldn't afford. The caption read, "Work hard, play harder." I almost threw my phone across the room. Work hard? They hadn't worked for this. They'd stolen it from me. I sat on the edge of my bed, gripping the phone, my chest rising and falling fast. "This isn't just selfish," I whispered. "This is evil." The worst part wasn't even the money, it was the lies. Every time Mom sighed, every time she clutched her chest, every time she thanked me for sacrificing for her, I couldn't tell if it was real or an act. I found myself watching her closely when she didn't know I was in the room. Once, I saw her walk to the kitchen with steady steps, humming softly. But the second she noticed me in the doorway, she groaned, grabbed the counter, and said, "Oh, my poor legs today." I forced a smile, but inside, my heart cracked. How long had she been playing me? It all came to a head one Friday night. Sandra sent me a message, "Big bill this time, Liv. $2,300. Can you transfer tonight?" Mom's worried. Not even a minute later, Mark called. "Sis, don't stress, okay? We'll handle the paperwork. Just send it to me and I'll take care of it." You know how confusing hospitals are. Then, like clockwork, Mom called too. "Olivia," she groaned into the phone, "the doctor says I might need another scan. Please, don't delay. You're the only one I can depend on." 3 voices. 1 script. And suddenly, I couldn't ignore it anymore. I hung up the phone, my hands trembling. I walked to my desk, opened my folder, and stared at the stack of bills they'd given me. Then I whispered to myself, "They're all in on it." What would you do if you discovered not only your siblings but even your own mother were faking medical needs to drain you? Would you confront them or quietly gather proof? Comment your answer, and don't forget to subscribe for more sweet revenge stories on this channel. After that Friday night triple attack, the text from Sandra, the call from Mark, and Mom's groaning voice, I couldn't unhear it anymore. It wasn't just paranoia. They were working together. And now that I'd let myself see it, the cracks were everywhere. The following Monday, I went to visit Mom again. She was sitting in her recliner, blanket tucked up to her chin, moaning softly. "My chest feels tight again," she said when I walked in. "The doctor said it could be dangerous." I swallowed, forcing concern into my voice. "Oh no, Mom. Did you take your medication today?" She blinked, then patted her lap. Yes, of course." But I noticed something on the side table, a half-full pill bottle, the cap still sealed with the pharmacy sticker. The label said it had been filled 3 weeks ago, yet almost all the pills were still inside. If her symptoms were real, why wasn't she taking her medicine? I said nothing, just smiled, but inside my stomach turned. A few days later, I stopped by Sandra's apartment unannounced. I told her I was dropping off some paperwork I'd borrowed. When she opened the door, she looked startled, like a kid caught with her hand in the cookie jar. "Liv. What are you doing here?" I stepped inside, scanning the room. And there it was on the counter, a shiny designer handbag with the tag still dangling. The kind of bag that cost more than a month of groceries. "New purse?" I asked lightly, pointing. Her face flushed. "Oh, this?" It was, a gift. From a friend. I raised an eyebrow. Sandra didn't have friends who gave $1,000 gifts. "Nice friend," I said quietly. She laughed nervously, tugging the bag off the counter. "Yeah, well, you know." I left soon after, but my suspicion sharpened. That purse didn't come from a friend. It came from me. Later that week, I drove past Mark's house. Parked in the driveway was a shiny, newer model SUV I knew he couldn't afford. When I called to ask, pretending to be casual, he bragged, "Oh yeah, I got a good deal." You know me, always finding opportunities. I gripped my phone tighter. Opportunities. Right. Opportunities like draining his sister's bank account under the guise of hospital bills. I decided to test them, gently. The next time Sandra asked for money, I said, "Could you send me the itemized receipt first?" Just so I can keep everything organized. She hesitated. Oh, you don't need that, Liv. It's confusing paperwork. I'll just send you the total. I pushed. I'd still like to see it. She grew defensive. Why don't you trust me? I'm handling this for Mom. Do you want her to suffer? Her voice cracked just enough to feel rehearsed. I backed down outwardly. Okay. Just asking. Inside, though, I screamed. They weren't even trying to hide it anymore. What hurt most was Mom's part. When I hesitated sending a payment one week, she called me directly. Olivia, she said, her voice low and trembling, do you really want me lying here, wondering if I'll get the care I need? I gave you life. I raised you. And now you can't even help me? Her words sliced through me. I wanted to yell, I have been helping. I've been paying everything. Instead, I whispered, of course I'll help, Mom. After we hung up, I sat on my bed with tears streaming down my face. I wasn't just losing money. I was losing my mother. And then came the call that shattered everything. It was late, close to midnight, when my phone buzzed. I groggily reached for it, expecting another guilt trip from Sandra. But instead, a calm female voice said, "Hello, this is billing from St. Mary's Hospital. Is this Olivia Torres?" "Yes," I said, sitting up. "I'm calling because we haven't received payment for your mother's account in several months. The balance due is $3,200. Are you able to make a payment tonight?" My blood ran cold. "What?" I whispered. I've been paying thousands every month." The woman paused. "Ma'am, we have no record of payments from you since her initial stay. Are you sure you're paying us directly?" My hand shook. "No. I've been sending money to my siblings. They said they were handling it." Her voice softened. "I'm sorry, ma'am. But the hospital hasn't seen a cent. The balance is still outstanding." I thanked her numbly and hung up, my chest tight. They weren't just skimming. They weren't just inflating bills. They weren't paying the hospital at all. I sat there in the dark, my phone still in my hand, my mind reeling. Images flooded me, Sandra flaunting her designer purse. Mark leaning against his shiny car. Mom sighing dramatically on the recliner. All of it funded by me, while the hospital bills piled up unpaid. Hot tears spilled down my cheeks. "They didn't just use me," I whispered. "They betrayed me. And they betrayed Mom's care too." But then another thought crept in, darker. Unless Mom knew. Unless Mom was in on it too. The room spun around me. My chest heaved. This wasn't just unfair. This was unforgivable. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat at my desk, staring at the folder of fake bills they'd given me. One by one, I compared them to the hospital statements I'd just requested online. The differences were glaring: wrong dates, inflated amounts, vague terms. It was all a performance. I whispered into the silence, "You think I'm too naive to fight back. But you're wrong." For the first time in months, I felt something other than despair. I felt determination. They had written me into their little script as the gullible, responsible one. But I was about to rewrite the ending. If you found out your siblings weren't paying the hospital at all and were pocketing your money, what would you do? Confront them right away or quietly prepare your revenge? Comment below, and don't forget to subscribe for more sweet revenge stories. After the hospital's midnight call, my world tilted on its axis. For days, I walked around in a fog. I went to work, I answered emails, I smiled when coworkers asked if I was okay. But inside, I was screaming. My siblings weren't paying the hospital. They were pocketing my money. That alone was betrayal enough. But one question clawed at my insides, gnawing at me until I could barely breathe. Was Mom part of this too? The next time I visited her, I decided to pay closer attention. She was in her recliner again, wrapped in that same blanket. As soon as I stepped inside, she pressed a hand dramatically to her chest. "Oh, Liv," she groaned, "my heart feels heavy today. The doctor says I might need more tests. Your siblings told me you'd help, right? You'll help, won't you?" Her voice trembled, her eyes glossy with fake tears. I forced a smile. "Of course, Mom." But then I watched. When she thought I wasn't looking, she reached for the remote, flipped on her favorite game show, and sat forward comfortably. The groans stopped. Her hand dropped from her chest. She even hummed along with the theme music. But the second she noticed me watching from the kitchen doorway, she clutched her chest again and sighed loudly. It was like flipping a switch. My stomach dropped. She wasn't sick. Not really. She was performing. Later, while she napped, I glanced at her medication bottles. Several were unopened. Others were only missing a few pills, even though they'd been prescribed weeks ago. If she was truly as sick as she claimed, why wasn't she taking them? I twisted the cap on one bottle, my hands shaking. The rattle of untouched pills sounded like mockery. That evening, I decided to push her gently. "Mom," I said, sitting on the edge of her recliner. "Do you want me to come with you to your next appointment? I could meet the doctor with you, ask questions, make sure we're all clear." Her eyes widened. Too wide. "Oh no, sweetheart. That's not necessary. Mark and Sandra already take me. They understand everything. You don't need to bother yourself." I leaned forward. "But I want to. If it's about your health, I should be there." She waved her hand dismissively, avoiding my eyes. "Don't worry about it, Liv. You're already paying enough. Let your siblings handle the rest." Her voice was calm, but her fingers twisted in the blanket nervously. And in that moment, I knew. She was protecting the lie. That night, I sat in my car in their driveway, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles went white. It wasn't just my siblings. It was Mom too. The woman who raised me. The woman who taught me to always tell the truth. The woman who used to hug me when I was scared of thunderstorms, whispering, "I'll always protect you." Now she was teaming up with Mark and Sandra to drain me dry. I stared out the windshield, tears blurring my vision. "How could you, Mom?" I whispered. A week later, I got my final piece of confirmation. I had stopped by to drop off soup I'd made. As I walked up the steps, I heard voices through the open window. Mark's voice, "At least Olivia is paying. She'll never suspect." Sandra's laugh, "She's so uptight about money, she'll never give it to us if we ask directly." And then Mom's voice, soft but clear, "Just make sure she thinks it's for me. She'll pay anything if she thinks it's for my health." My knees buckled. I had to grab the railing to keep from collapsing. It wasn't suspicion anymore. It was fact. My own mother was the mastermind. I didn't knock. I didn't drop off the soup. I turned, walked back to my car, and drove away. At a red light, I broke down. My chest heaved with sobs. My tears fell hot and heavy, blurring the world into streaks of color. I whispered over and over, "Even Mom. Even Mom. Even Mom." The pain cut deeper than anything my siblings had done. I could survive their betrayal. But hers? That nearly destroyed me. That night, I sat at my desk, staring at the growing folder of evidence: fake bills, bank transfers, screenshots of Sandra's luxury purchases, Mark's flashy car photos, and now, the overheard recording on my phone. I press play again, listening to Mom's voice. Just make sure she thinks it's for me. She'll pay anything if she thinks it's for my health. My hands trembled, but my jaw set firm. They thought I was the fool. The gullible one. The responsible one who would carry them forever. But they were wrong. I was going to make them pay. And not just in money. I was going to make sure everyone, our family, our friends, our community, knew exactly what they'd done. What would you do if you caught your own mother plotting with your siblings to scam you? Would you forgive her, or expose them all? Comment below, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more sweet vengeance tales. The night I overheard my mother's voice through that window, something inside me snapped. It wasn't just sadness anymore. It wasn't even anger. If they wanted to treat me like the gullible one, fine. I'd play along. But while they were busy laughing at me, I'd be preparing. And when the moment was right, I'd make sure their little scheme blew up in their faces so hard they'd never recover. The next morning, Sandra texted like clockwork. "Hey Liv, Mom needs another round of meds. $780 this time. Can you send it today?" My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I wanted to type, "Stop lying. I know everything." Instead, I forced my hands to type, "Sure. Sending it now." And I did. I sent it with a smile. Because I wasn't done gathering proof. If they thought they were fooling me, it only made my job easier. That week, I started organizing everything. I dug through my email and printed every fake bill Sandra had sent me. I highlighted the vague terms like miscellaneous care and extra testing. I pulled bank statements showing every transfer I'd made to Mark and Sandra. Each one marked hospital bill. I printed those too. I logged into the hospital's online portal and downloaded the real statements. Clear, detailed, itemized. And very, very different from what my siblings had given me. I laid them side by side on my kitchen table. The differences were glaring. One bill from Sandra said $1,450 for general tests. The hospital's statement for that same week? $320 for a single X-ray. Another fake invoice claimed $2,300 for extended care. The hospital's real charge? $560 for a follow-up. I highlighted everything in bright yellow until the papers glowed with evidence. But as I worked, I couldn't stop the ache in my chest. These weren't strangers cheating me. These were my siblings. My own mother. Every time I saw her face in my mind, her fake groans, her teary eyes, her "you're the only one I can count on," I felt like I was choking. I whispered to myself, "You used me. You all used me." But then I looked at the papers again. And the ache hardened into steel. I knew documents alone weren't enough. They could try to deny it, say I misunderstood, claim it was a mistake. So I started recording. The next time Mark called, I hit record before answering. "Hey sis," he said cheerfully. "Bad news, Mom needs another scan. The doctor said it's urgent, $900. Can you cover it today?" I asked innocently, "Do you have the bill?" He chuckled. "Nah, don't worry about it. I'll handle the paperwork. Just send the money, and I'll take care of it." Click. Recorded. Saved. When Sandra texted later, I screenshotted her message, "Don't ask questions, Liv. Just send it. We can't let Mom down. Saved. Piece by piece, their lies built my case. The hardest part was testing Mom. One afternoon, I visited her and brought my phone hidden in my pocket, recording. She was curled up on the couch, groaning. "Oh, Liv, my heart feels so bad today. I don't know what I'd do without all these tests. You'll keep helping, won't you?" I forced a tremble into my voice. "Of course, Mom. But, do you really need another scan? Didn't the last one come back fine?" She hesitated, then sighed. "Doctors always want more. You wouldn't understand. Just keep trusting your siblings, okay?" Click. Recorded. Later, when she thought I wasn't looking, she walked to the kitchen with steady steps, opened the fridge, and poured herself juice. No groans, no trembling hands. But as soon as I cleared my throat, she clutched her chest again. Click. Another recording. By the end of the month, I had a binder. A thick, heavy binder filled with fake bills from my siblings, real hospital statements, bank transfers with their names, screenshots of Sandra's spa trips and luxury purchases, photos of Mark's new SUV, recorded calls and conversations, including Mom's fake act. I flipped through the pages late one night, the sound of paper sharp in the quiet. "This isn't just proof," I whispered. "This is their coffin." For weeks, I lived a double life. To them, I was still the same Olivia. The responsible one. The payer. The sister who never asked too many questions, who always came through in the end. But behind closed doors, I was a detective. A collector. Every text they sent me became evidence. Every groan from Mom became a recording. At night, I cried. In the morning, I smiled. Because I knew the longer I waited, the harder they'd fall. One evening, Sandra slipped. She was ranting on the phone, her voice low but sharp. "Mark, you bought that car too soon. She's going to notice. We should have waited until after the next payment." She didn't realize she had butt dialed me. I sat frozen, listening to every word. Click. Saved. The real turning point came when the hospital sent another official notice. Balance due, $7,800. Immediate action required. My stomach dropped. $7,800. Money I had already sent them many times over. I folded the letter carefully and placed it in the binder. That was the final nail. That night, I sat at my desk, staring at the thick binder. I ran my fingers over the cover, feeling the weight of it. I whispered, "You think I'm weak. You think I'm gullible. But you don't know me at all." For the first time in months, I smiled. Not a sad smile. Not a forced one. A smile of someone who knows the end is coming. If you had a binder of proof that your own family was scamming you, what would you do? Confront them quietly, or wait and expose them publicly? Comment your answer, and don't forget to subscribe for more sweet revenge stories. I used to think revenge was loud. Shouting. Slamming doors. Confrontations in the heat of the moment. But sitting at my kitchen table with the heavy binder in front of me, I realized revenge wasn't loud at all. It was quiet. It was patient. It was the slow, steady click of a printer spitting out documents. The hum of a laptop as you save one more recording. The whisper of a zipper closing over a folder full of secrets. Revenge was preparation. And I was prepared. One Thursday evening, my phone buzzed with Mark's name flashing on the screen. I took a deep breath before answering, making my voice cheerful. Hey, Mark. He sighed dramatically. Liv, bad news. Mom had another test today. It's going to be pricey, like $1,800. Can you send it tonight? I swallowed back my anger. Wow, that's a lot. Do you have the paperwork? He chuckled. You don't need to stress about that. I've got it handled. Just send me the money, and I'll take care of the rest. I forced a laugh. You always make things sound so simple. Because it is simple, he said, his tone turning sharp. Just send it, Liv. Don't complicate things. When I hung up, I immediately opened my recording app and replayed his words. Just send it, Liv. Don't complicate things. Saved. Evidence. Not even an hour later, Sandra texted me. Mark said he already told you, but I'm reminding you too. We need the money tonight. Mom is depending on you. Don't let her down. I typed back slowly, I'll bring it in person. I want to see Mom anyway. 3 dots appeared. Then, great. Bring cash. Easier that way. Cash. Of course. No trail. But I had other plans. That night, I sat at my desk and pulled out a large manila envelope. On the outside, in bold black letters, I wrote, Final payment. Inside, I placed a neat stack of papers. Not money. Proof. Copies of fake bills. Real hospital statements. Screenshots of texts demanding money. Photos of Sandra's luxury purchases and Mark's SUV. Transcripts of recorded calls. And at the very top, a printed page with bold letters, This is what you've been taking from me. I slid everything in, sealed the flap, and ran my fingers over the thick envelope. It felt heavier than any bundle of cash ever could. This wasn't just paper. This was a weapon. The next day, I called Mark and Sandra. I'll bring the payment tonight, I told them, keeping my voice steady. Let's all meet at Mom's place. Sandra squealed. Perfect. She'll be so relieved. Mark added, About time, sis. You've been dragging your feet lately. I smiled to myself. Enjoy the anticipation, you parasites. Tonight is the last time you'll ever laugh at me. Before heading over, I called Mom. Hi, Mom, I said softly. I'm coming by tonight. I'll bring the payment with me. She groaned theatrically. Oh, thank goodness, Liv. I've been so worried. My chest hasn't felt right all week. You don't know how much this means. I gripped the phone tighter, my jaw clenched. Her act didn't hurt me anymore. It disgusted me. I know, Mom, I said calmly. I'll make sure everything is taken care of. When I hung up, I whispered, Just not the way you think. On the drive over, my heart raced. What if they realized before I handed it over? What if they tore open the envelope and lunged at me? I shook my head. No. I wasn't scared anymore. I had the high ground. And even if they tried to twist it later, it didn't matter. Because copies of everything were already stored on a flash drive in my purse and emailed to myself for good measure. This wasn't just a confrontation. It was insurance. When I pulled into the driveway, Sandra's car was already there. Mark's SUV gleamed under the porch light. I took a deep breath, grabbed the envelope, and walked up the steps. The moment I opened the door, Mom looked up from her recliner. She groaned loudly, pressing a hand to her chest. Olivia, she whispered dramatically. Did you bring it? I smiled faintly. Yes, Mom. I brought it. Sandra practically bounced on the couch, her eyes locked on the envelope. Finally! Hand it over, we'll take care of everything. Mark leaned forward, his smirk smug. See, I told you she'd come through. She always does. I held the envelope tightly for a moment, savoring the irony. Then I placed it on the coffee table and slid it across. Here it is. Final payment. Sandra snatched it up eagerly, ripping at the flap. Mark leaned over her shoulder, his grin widening. But as they pulled out the papers, their smiles faltered. What is this? Sandra whispered. Mark flipped through the stack, his face growing red. These are bills? Screenshots? What the hell is this, Liv? I crossed my arms, my voice calm and sharp. It's proof. Proof of everything you've done. Proof of every lie. Proof that you've been scamming me while Mom played along. Mom's face drained of color. Olivia, sweetheart, you don't understand. Oh, I understand perfectly, I cut in. You thought I'd never notice. You thought I'd keep paying forever. But this? I tapped the stack. This is already copied. It's already safe. And it's already been sent to people who will care a lot more than I do. Sandra's hands shook as she dropped the papers onto the table. You wouldn't. I already did, I said flatly. Mark's eyes widened. Who did you send this to? I smiled coldly. The hospital. Our extended family. And the church. By tomorrow, everyone will know exactly what you've been doing. The room fell silent. Mom finally spoke, her voice trembling. Olivia, please, don't do this. We're family. I stared at her, my chest aching but my voice steady. Family doesn't steal from family. Family doesn't fake sickness to drain their own child. You stopped being family the moment you betrayed me. I picked up my purse, slung it over my shoulder, and turned toward the door. Behind me, Sandra's voice rose in a panicked cry. Liv, wait. We can work this out. Mark shouted angrily, you can't just walk away. You owe us. I paused at the door, looked back at them, and said softly, no. You owe me. And now, everyone will know it. Then I walked out into the night, leaving them in stunned silence. If you were in Olivia's shoes, would you have handed over the envelope like that, or waited to expose them later? What would you do? Comment below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more sweet revenge stories. When I walked out of Mom's house that night, leaving the thick envelope of proof on the coffee table, my heart hammered so loud I could hear it in my ears. But underneath the racing pulse, I felt something else. Relief. For months, I had carried the weight of their lies, their manipulations, their fake bills. Now, I had finally put the weight back where it belonged, on them. Still, I knew one confrontation wasn't enough. Mark and Sandra were slick. Mom was dramatic. They would try to twist the story, paint me as the selfish one. That's why I didn't just hand them the envelope. I had already detonated the bomb. The next morning, my phone buzzed nonstop. First it was Sandra. Olivia, what did you do? Then Mark. You're insane. Take it back now. Then Mom. How could you humiliate me like this? I didn't reply. I let the notifications pile up like a storm I had no intention of walking into. Because I knew where those messages were coming from. My extended family had received their copies of the binder. The church committee had too. And St. Mary's Hospital's billing office now had everything: the fake bills, the bank transfers, the recordings. By the time I poured my first cup of coffee, the story wasn't just mine anymore. It was out there. It didn't take long for the fallout to hit. By Sunday afternoon, Aunt Clara called. "Olivia, honey, is it true? Did they really forge bills? Use your money for themselves?" Her voice shook with anger. I swallowed hard. "Yes, Aunt Clara. It's all in the documents I sent. Every fake bill. Every transfer. Even recordings." She let out a sharp gasp. "Unbelievable. And your mother too? After all you've done for her?" I closed my eyes. Yes. Even her. Her silence said more than words ever could. That evening, Uncle David invited the whole family to his house for an urgent meeting. I knew what that meant. Judgment Day. When I walked into Uncle David's living room, the air was thick. Cousins, aunts, uncles, all seated, whispering. On one side of the room sat Mark and Sandra, looking pale and cornered. Mom sat between them, her hands folded tightly in her lap, eyes darting nervously. The moment I stepped in, the room went silent. Mark jumped up, pointing at me. "This is ridiculous. Olivia's making things up. She's always been dramatic." "Sit down, Mark," Uncle David snapped, his voice sharp. "We've all seen the documents. We're here to hear from Olivia now." I took a deep breath and faced the room. "For months," I began, my voice steady, "I believed I was paying Mom's hospital bills. I sent thousands of dollars to my siblings. I trusted them." I glanced at Sandra. Her eyes darted away. But then I learned the truth. The hospital hadn't received a cent. My siblings inflated bills, pocketed the rest, and my own mother played sick to keep the charade going. Gasps rippled through the room. Aunt Clara shook her head. "Sandra? Mark? Tell me it's not true." Sandra stammered, It was just temporary. We were going to pay her back." Mark added quickly, "Olivia makes more money than us. It wasn't fair. She can afford it." I cut him off. "Fair? You call stealing fair? You call faking our mother's illness fair? You didn't just take my money, you took my trust." The room buzzed with murmurs. So I pulled out my phone. "There's more," I said. "You don't have to take just my word." I tapped the screen, and the recording filled the room. Sandra's voice, "Don't ask questions, Liv. Just send it. We can't let Mom down." Mark's voice, "Just send it, Liv. Don't complicate things." And then, the one that silenced everyone, Mom's voice, low and clear. "Just make sure she thinks it's for me. She'll pay anything if she thinks it's for my health." The words echoed in the living room like a bomb going off. Mom's face went pale. Sandra burst into tears. Mark swore under his breath. The family stared at them with horror. It wasn't just family. By Sunday evening, word had spread to the church. Pastor Mitchell called me directly. "Olivia, we received your documents." I'm shocked. Your mother stood up at service just 2 weeks ago asking for prayers for her heart. My throat tightened. "I know, Pastor. That's why I had to share the truth." By the next week, whispers swirled everywhere. People who once praised my siblings now looked at them with disgust. "And Mom?" She couldn't show her face without people murmuring behind her back. St. Mary's Hospital called too. Ms. Torres, the billing officer said, "Thank you for bringing this to our attention. Forging or inflating bills is considered fraud. Since the account lists your siblings as responsible parties, we'll be pursuing repayment from them directly." I exhaled slowly. So I'm no longer on the hook? Not at all. In fact, we've flagged their names for investigation. When I hung up, I felt like a chain had been cut from around my neck. Of course, Mark and Sandra didn't take it quietly. They stormed into my apartment one evening, faces red with fury. Sandra screamed, "How could you do this to us? To Mom? You ruined our lives." Mark shouted, "You embarrassed us in front of everyone. Family, church, the hospital. Do you know how humiliated we are?" I looked at them calmly. "You embarrassed yourselves. I just showed the truth." Sandra's tears turned bitter. "We were just trying to have a better life." I clenched my fists. "At my expense. At the expense of your own sister. At the expense of Mom's dignity, even if she gave it away herself." They sputtered, but they had no words left. Because there was no defense. A week later, Mom called me. Her voice was shaky, almost unrecognizable. "Olivia, sweetheart, can't you forgive me? I was only trying to help your siblings. They needed money. You were always so careful, so responsible. You had more than they did." Tears burned my eyes. "Mom, you didn't just help them. You betrayed me. You used me. And you let me believe you were dying, just so I'd pay faster." Her silence cut deeper than words. Finally, she whispered, "I never thought you'd turn against your own mother." I whispered back, "You turned against me first." And then I hung up. If you were me, would you ever forgive your family after exposing them so publicly, or would you cut ties forever? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe to see more stories on this channel. When the storm finally hit, I thought I'd feel triumphant. And in some ways, I did. But more than anything, I felt free. The weight I'd carried for months, the late-night tears, the drained bank account, the ache of betrayal, it wasn't mine anymore. It was theirs. And now, for the first time, they were the ones paying. It started with Mark. The shiny SUV he had bragged about on social media? Gone within weeks. One of my cousins told me she saw a tow truck hooking it up outside his house. Repossession, she whispered on the phone. Later, I overheard him screaming at the bank when he came to my apartment, pounding on the door. "You don't understand, my credit is fine. This isn't my fault. My sister set me up." I stayed behind the locked door, sipping tea. "No, Mark. You set yourself up." Sandra's fall wasn't as loud, but it was visible. The designer handbags, the spa visits, the glamorous selfies? Gone. Her social media dried up overnight. Instead, I heard whispers at church. She had sold her jewelry. Pawned 2 handbags. Cancelled her nail appointments. When I bumped into her at the grocery store, she looked tired, pale. She clutched a basket with only bread and milk inside. She saw me, froze, and whispered, "Liv." I raised an eyebrow. "Sandra." Her lips trembled. "I never wanted it to go this far." I tilted my head. "You wanted every cent until you got caught." She flinched like I'd slapped her. We stood there for a long, silent moment, the hum of the refrigerators filling the space between us. Then I walked away, leaving her standing in the bread aisle with nothing but excuses. But it was Mom's fall that hit hardest. At church, she used to sit in the front pew, surrounded by people who admired her for raising such responsible children. Now, she sat in the back, eyes down, whispers chasing her like shadows. She faked being sick, someone murmured behind me one Sunday. Imagine using your own daughter like that, another whispered. Mom didn't look at me that day. Not once. Later that week, she called. Her voice was hoarse, weary. Olivia, I can't walk into the store without people staring. I can't go to Bible study without hearing whispers. Please, make it stop. Tell them it was a misunderstanding. I closed my eyes, my throat tight. It wasn't a misunderstanding, Mom. You made your choice. Now you live with it. There was silence on the line. Then, a soft sob. Even my own daughter won't stand by me, she whispered. I whispered back, steady but broken, you stopped being my mother when you used me. And then I hung up. A month later, I received a letter from St. Mary's Hospital. It wasn't addressed to me this time. It was addressed to Mark and Sandra. The letter stated they were responsible for repaying over $12,000 in unpaid bills, plus penalties. If they failed, legal action would follow. I laughed softly as I read it. Not out of joy, but out of relief. Finally, it was no longer my name on the line. It was theirs. Family members called me often during that time. Some praised me. Olivia, you were so brave. We're proud of you for standing up. Some scolded me. You didn't have to humiliate them like that. They're still your family. To both, I gave the same answer. I didn't humiliate them. They humiliated themselves. I just showed the truth. And with each call, my spine grew straighter, my heart lighter. As weeks turned into months, I slowly rebuilt what they had taken from me. I made a budget. Paid down what little debt I had left. Opened a new savings account in a bank they didn't know about. For the first time in months, I watched the numbers grow instead of shrink. I moved into a new apartment, small but mine. On the first night, I stood in the middle of the living room with a paint roller in my hand. I dipped it into a can of teal paint and rolled it across the wall. The color spread bright and bold, covering the blank beige. It wasn't just a wall. It was a declaration. This space is mine. My money is mine. My life is mine. And no one will ever steal it again. One Saturday, I went to visit Mom at her house. Not because I forgave her, but because I needed closure. She was sitting in her recliner, the blanket over her lap. She looked smaller, older. When she saw me, her eyes filled with tears. Olivia. I didn't think you'd come. I stayed standing. I'm not here to stay. I just wanted you to know. I'll always care about you as my mother. But I will never let you use me again. Her chin trembled. So this is it? You're cutting me off? I shook my head. I'm setting boundaries. I'll help with real needs, directly, through the hospital. But never again through lies. Never again through you. She lowered her gaze, tears sliding down her cheeks. And for once, she had no performance left. As I drove home, I thought about everything. For years, I wore the label responsible one like it was my only identity. I thought it meant taking care of everyone else, no matter the cost to me. But now, I realized responsibility also meant knowing when to stop. When to say no. When to protect myself. I wasn't just the responsible one anymore. I was the strong one. Weeks later, Sandra texted me one final time. Liv, I know you hate me. But I'm sorry. Truly. I wish we had never done it. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed back. I don't hate you. But I will never trust you again. And I left it at that. Now, when I sit in my teal-painted living room, sipping tea and watching the sunlight spill across the floor, I smile. Not because everything is perfect. Not because I got every dollar back. But because I took my power back. They thought they could use me forever. Instead, I taught them a lesson they'll never forget. And I finally found peace. If your own family betrayed you this way, would you forgive them eventually, or would you protect your peace and walk away forever? Tell me in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this.